it's Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, this is what kind of started this whole video off. I love this look here and this was so much fun to create, and we are going to kind of skim over the top of some embossing folders to give them all of these different colors and different textures and just make the most of this. So I have this embossing folder. This is the one that started it all off, but I'm going to show you some others, how you can do it with those too. This is the Organic Petals, and this is a 3D embossing folder. This has really deep embossing. This is an absolutely gorgeous embossing folder, and my mind definitely ran away with ideas when I got this one in my hands. So to start this off, we are going to be doing some ink blending. Now I have become lazier with my ink blending, so you should probably use like a proper, blending tool. But honestly, my finger daubers are so much handier to me. I'm going to use some chipped sapphire and broken china for the first one, but I'm going to show you lots of different versions with different colors. I picked 2, some of them I picked 3. Now honestly, with the finger daubers, it's going to look like a little bit of a mess to begin with, and I promise it will all come together just fine. Adding the chipped sapphire here tends to look a little bit blotchy, but by the time I'm done, I promise it will be all smoothed out. This is also just on regular cardstock. This is the 110 pound Frenchville kind, which is from Spotlight here in New Zealand. However, I know that you can get this in the Australian Spotlights. But I also used to use the Recollections brand paper, and I swear that these are identical. I cannot tell the difference, and I love this one. I used to always use my Nina Solar White, and it just became too expensive. And then this one, honestly, I can barely tell the difference between Nina and this. So this is what I use these days. I use this for my card fronts and my card bases, which I all cut up myself. And then here, once I have added on a little bit more of the blue on the inside, we have got a not too bad a blend, but I promise by the time this is all over, it will look perfectly fine. You don't have to make your blending perfect, in particular when you're going to be doing other things on top of it. So I did 3 of these, and I did stick with the same pattern just to kind of give you a good comparison between all of them, but obviously you can go for gold. You could even do this on top of patterned paper as well, so it doesn't have to be something that you ink up yourself. So for the middle one there, I used the Tumbled Glass, Cracked Pistachio and Peacock Feathers, and then for the right hand one, I just used my usual Candied Apple, Spiced Marmalade and Mustard Seed. I'm going to take the middle one here and pop this into the Organic Petals one. Now this one, I absolutely love this embossing folder. I must admit, it is still one of the best feelings ever when you get a product and you absolutely love it. So this is obviously the back, and you can see the detail really nicely. It has such deep embossing, and then when you turn it over, it is absolutely gorgeous. It is like almost pillow-like. I absolutely love this one. So I'm also going to do the orangey red yellow one in this as well, only because I love it so much. And then for the last one, I'm actually going to use a Creative Expressions 3D embossing folder, and this one is going to be called Fanciful Flowers, but I find that any embossing folder is going to work with this technique. However, the 3D embossing folders kind of give a little bit more dimension, but even this 3D embossing folder doesn't have the depth of the other ones. So I guess it just depends what you have in your stash, and I'm always one to use what you have in your stash. It's the best place to go shopping and to have a look around, but I must admit I am mighty happy with the purchase of my other one as well. So the Organic Petals one is one that I'm really enjoying at the moment, and I have another couple of videos coming up using that one as well. So this one still has a gorgeous pattern. It still comes out really, really nice. Now from here, I am going to use a couple of things to help me out. I'm sure there are other things that you could use, so if not, then you could use some makeup wedges or something like that, something spongy and foamy. But today I'm going to be using the little foam blending, but I'm going to use the flat ones. So this one is, it's kind of what was around before the domed foam blenders. So the domed one is like this, I'm going to show you in just a second, versus this one here. So you can see that one's flat and one has a little dome to the top of it. The flat ones definitely work better for this technique. So if you have a flat piece of foam, I think that would work the best. And for this, I'm going to be using the Simon Hurley Lunar paste. Now I have the Slippery When Wet color, which is an absolutely gorgeous gold color. I love this for all things gold. If you want a gorgeous shiny gold, then this is perfect for you. I have my little non-stick mat down to the right hand side there. That little mat is just the replacement mat for the glass media mat. I don't have the glass media mat, but I do love the size of these little replacement mats. So I'm going to pop a little bit of the paste just down there. Make sure that you wipe off all the tools that you use because this will dry on these things. Pop the lid back on whilst I'm not using it. And then I just want to kind of load up the dauber. So I am just going to make sure that it's nice and kind of evenly dispersed on there. And I definitely don't want too much because I really just want to glide over the top of all of that dimension. I do not want to get in the cracks and crevices. I just want to catch the top details that the embossing folder has left. So I'm kind of just dabbing it down there on the non-stick sheet, and I'll be able to pick all of that up again in a minute. And then start off with a really light hand and just go over it, and you'll get a feel for how much is on your dauber and how hard you need to press. But you can see all of those gorgeous lines start to show through. It really shows up, the kind of enhances the image that we embossed, and it just brings to life all those raised pieces. And then even better, when I end up moving this in the light, it is absolutely stunning. I tried this and both of my kids' little mouths opened. They were loving the look of this one, and so they gave this a go themselves as well. But it is really easy, there's nothing too crazy to it, and it is absolutely gorgeous results. So this is the first one that I did. Then I'm going to show you on the next one, which is the red and orange and yellow one. And again, even though this is gold, I'm just going in with a really light hand, and you can see that it's going to show up perfectly nicely. And of course, depending on the background colors that you use, how much this is going to kind of shine through and really be bold or kind of sink into the background a little bit more. So I would say that this one kind of sinks in a little bit more, obviously similar colors, whereas imagine if you did it on black and blue. I was thinking about using the chipped sapphire distress oxide on top of black cardstock and then doing this on top of it. So my mind was racing, but when you move this around in the light, it is absolutely stunning. And then when you kind of catch it off the light, you kind of lose the gold. So I love that. It's kind of got two different looks to it. So those are the two with the organic petals one, and then I thought I would show you it works exactly the same if you do it with another embossing folder. And again, you just want to have a light hand and catch the very top of the embossing. So I just kept going back to my little non-stick mat, picking up a little bit and then bringing it into the detail. And again, I just want a really light hand, and it was really easy not to catch the background using the flat foam dauber. So I like this one pretty much just as much as the other ones. I really like how these came out. So from here, we need to start putting these together into some cards. So for this one, I'm going to start off and use this Catherine Paula stamp set here. This is the Natural Flourishes stamp set. These are photopolymer stamps, and they are absolutely gorgeous to stamp with. There is matching dies with these, I'm pretty sure, but I didn't get these because when looking at these to me look easy enough to fussy cut, and I will show you that in a little bit too. But I really like the look of this one in particular, and in fact this card that I created, I very nearly went off on another tangent, but I did end up creating a whole nother video because I was like, yes, that's what I want to do with this. I love this stamp set. This is the perfect little foliage flourish. I really love this one. And then this one here is just as gorgeous, and I wasn't sure at this point which one I wanted to use, so I may as well stamp out both because I know I'll use them as well. So I stamped them out in some VersaFine Onyx black ink. It's a beautiful black dark pigment ink that I can stamp with. Then I pop some clear embossing powder over top. This is not watercolor paper, so whatever I end up coloring this with, I cannot super saturate it with color. It will take a little bit of water, but not too much, and we don't want the paper to end up pilling. So I did think I could perhaps use some alcohol markers, and originally that was pretty much my thought. That's what I was going to do, but I changed my plan when everything was kind of already out on my desk, and I thought I would just use what was there. So I'm going to melt this with my heat gun. You can see when it changes into that nice black dark color and it goes a little bit shiny, you know that it's all melted. Now I had the oxides out on my desk, so I'm going to use these, whereas the alcohol markers are down in a drawer. That's how easily I can be swayed sometimes for my decision making. And although I'm positive it's not recommended, I squeeze my Distress Oxides just gently so that I get a little bit of ink on the lids, and then I take it from there to use with my water brush. This is the medium Altenew water brush, and it's the perfect kind of release amount of water for me. So I'm using some Mowed Lawn and some Twisted Citron, and I am just using a little bit of the Twisted Citron at the ends of the leaves here, and then the Mowed Lawn down towards the bottom. The Mowed Lawn was pretty light, so I actually came around a second time around and added just a little bit more. As I said, I didn't have all the time in the world to kind of blend because this was not watercolor paper, and I hadn't anticipated using water and oxides when I was stamping this out, but this looks pretty good to me. Then once I had done this, as I said, I was going to fussy cut this one out. It's nice and easy to fussy cut. My background that I was going to put this on is pretty intense. There's quite a lot going on, there's quite a lot of colour, and it's quite bold. So usually I don't like this look, but for this one in particular, I'm going to leave a white border around my image. This also makes it a little bit easier because this has a thin stem that runs through the middle. So for this, it is going to be really handy to have a good pair of fussy cutting scissors. As always, I'm using my little cutter bees. These have lasted me an absolute lifetime. I bought these when I very first started card making, and I have never once regretted the decision to grab some. Something with a little fine point to them, and just usually not too big. The blade is not too long, and they're going to be great for fussy cutting. Then I'm going to make this really quick and simple. I'm taking some Lawn Fawn vellum, and I like this Lawn Fawn vellum because I can heat emboss on this and it doesn't warp. Some vellums that you use, if you take a heat gun to them, they will automatically crinkle up because it is plastic. But this one I can do heat embossing, which I absolutely love. I'm using some Embossing Ink. This one is the Maker Fort one, and I am liking this ink. I've switched over to this recently, and after going with Versamark for a really long time, I struggled to get the Versamark one, so I picked up this one to try it out. I picked up the re-inker as well, and I'm really liking this one, and so I have been converted for a little while, but whatever you have, whatever brand that you have is going to be just fine. Just make sure that it is inked up nicely, because there's nothing worse than a dry embossing ink pad, And then I'm just using my long bladed scissors to cut this out with a little point on it. This little sentiment is going to be super simple, but I actually think it stands out plenty enough on the background and in the card. I don't want it to take over. I quite like the little sentiment for this one. I am just going to trim off some of the edges so that this is going to fit on my 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch card base. I took off 1/4 inch all the way around the sides, so this should now sit at 3 3/4 by 5 inches. I add some liquid glue onto the back there, and that provides a really nice border around the outside there since I've cut a little bit off. Then just to add a little bit more dimension, I love the look of the foliage on here, but I'm going to pop this up on some little foam pieces. This is another reason why I really like this design. It is the perfect kind of, they have big enough leaves that I can pop foam tape behind these without it being super fiddly. These are all things that I look at before I purchase a stamp set. I look at if I can fussy cut it, I look at if I can color it, is it filled in, is it bold, is it solid images, am I able to get foam tape behind it, am I going to be able to die cut it without all the little pieces falling off, are they going to be too delicate? I think about all these things before I go ahead and purchase a stamp or a die or something like that. And then I'm just going to tuck this in under the adhesive, and then I actually snuck a little piece of double-sided tape in behind it, and that will keep it perfectly in place. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will leave links to everything down in the description box below. It really helps when you support me and purchase using those links if you are going to anyhow. Other than that, I will see you in the next video. Thanks, bye!